guilty of being apathetic while millions of people today are dying in the Middle East, in Iraq and Afghanistan. So if we can't deal with that, if we can't deal with the bloodshed taking place in the Middle East, we have not dealt with our racism. In fact, it's getting much worse. When you think about the Klan, when you think about the Nazis, do you think men in white robes? Or do you think about the real world that we actually live in today? Now, Bill, is that our guest or is that a caller?
Just a caller.
All right, let's go ahead and bring that caller on. I'd like to get the caller's thoughts on some things that we were discussing tonight. Hello, caller.
Hi, Alex.
Good
How
evening.
are you guys?
Good.
Okay, so yeah, as far as the movies go, man, you and I both know the government and Hollywood work hand in hand to plant the seeds of acceptance. I mean, you look at Enemy of the State, Day After Tomorrow. It's like a double-edged sword. You know?
Enemy of the State.
Will Smith, right?
And there was a part of Enemy of the State where the numbers 9/11 came up.
Oh, really?
Also in The Matrix as well, when Agent Smith is looking at Neo's identification card, it has his birth date as 9/11, and so this is interesting to see those things embedded within movies as well.
I'll be damned.
And the knowing, which Alex just mentioned, features the Gulf oil spill disaster before it takes place in the real world.
Lovely. You know, because I mean, you know that your subconscious picks up on it whether we register it or not.
Yeah, there's another film coming out in February of 2012. There's going to be a whole bunch of 2012 films coming out over the course of the next year, and so that's going to be interesting to see what that is about. But television is definitely something that I'm proud to say that I don't surf. The way I see women dehumanized, it's just constant. I mean, sex actually is a wonderful thing. It's unfortunate people practice too many unhealthy forms of it, but when you look at television, it's just constant desecration of the female body. Now, Jennifer, how much longer do you think it's going to take before more people wake up in critical mass that this propaganda is out there?
Well, it makes me sad because, unfortunately, I mean, I think we're fairly lucky to live where we do as far as free thinkers go.
Right.
But I think that there's going to be a lot of people that are going to wake up one day and look out the window and go, man, what is going on?
Yeah.
What happened? Where did this come from?
Right. A big surprise.
They don't see it. Oh, and I did have one last thing to say. Forgive me, I do not remember the man's first name, but it started with the letter D. His last name was Dreiser, and he's on the Council on Foreign Relations. I was watching him this morning on C-SPAN. Apparently, he wrote a book talking about a zombie apocalypse.
Oh, really?
And I found it very interesting, his choice of words, so I sat and watched it. And he wasn't talking about, like more brains kind of zombies, but just the possibility of which way this country can be corralled, manipulated, call it what you will.
The grand chessboard.
We refuse to think. And that could go hand in hand, with like pandemics and all that good stuff.
It's very interesting.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
Well, thank you for that tip, Jennifer. Feel free to send me a link via email,
please.
And I'd be interested in checking that out.
Cool, man.
Thank you for calling.
Hey, not a problem.
Good to talk to you. Let's talk to some more of you guys tonight as well. 503-288-4442. Something else also I wanted to mention, the way men are represented in Hollywood, in television. There's a film called Superbad, and a friend said, hey, watch Superbad. And I'm like, another sex-driven teenage film where it's just like the opening scene, his buddy's picking him up at his house, and his mom comes over to drop off a sack sandwich or something, and she bends over, and he's just like, oh, I'm so jealous of you that you got to suck on those when you were young, and the kid responds, well, you got to suck on your dad's you know what, and it just gets so vile, and when I see this stuff, I think about women, I think about mothers, I think about teenage girls, teenage boys, and how they're actually, how this is affecting them. When this stuff comes into the subconscious, we've moved into a world where the crude, the perverse, the super awkward, the leaning towards the dark has taken predominance in pop culture. In Hollywood today. Doesn't mean there aren't exceptions. Doesn't mean there aren't great documentary films. Doesn't mean there aren't great pieces of art and film and theater and musicals. But you see definitely where a lot of money is being directed towards propaganda. In fact, there was another article I read about several years ago that talked about the Pentagon recruiting comic book artists and writers for ideas on future weapons of war to potentially implement them in the real world. Because, folks, all it starts with is an idea.
Yeah.
And again, the world is made out of ideas. You know, it's like, what are we going to do with our intellect? This mind is a tool. Now, what we want to do with this mind, what we do with this mind, it's our responsibility, because it can go any way. It can go any way. You can create massive works of art with these minds, with this intellect. God knows where it came from. I believe it came from the stars. We are of the earth, but we're also far beyond human. But then, you know, there's what some people do with their intellect, and they're trying to create how to make bigger prisons and sophisticated surveillance systems and different ways that they desecrate the feminine goddess image on TV. What more do we need to realize there's something very wrong with our world? Tell you what, last week a 14-year-old was murdered in Holiday Park. It's all over the news. Of course, people are talking about this, and it's a good thing people are praying for him and his family. But I really pray for the people of Portland that they will realize one day these are not accidental events. It is a reflection of the larger world we live in, which is becoming increasingly violent. And people think this isn't going to affect children, poor African-American youth in North Portland, Northeast, poor what they call dirty white boys in outer Southeast, in Tweakerville. I mean, we are affected by our environment, and there's a great author, and his name is Bruce Lipton. He talks in depth about consciousness, how really we are not slaves to our genetics. The truth is, that's the old science. The new science of epigenetics is that environmental factors and internally what's going on inside our thoughts affect our health, affect so many things pertaining to our reality. I mean, we're barely just scratching the surface.
Yeah, Bill Hicks once said that you know, evolution didn't end with growing opposable thumbs. I mean, it's a matter of there's going to be a big, huge wake up, and I can feel it. It's definitely.
I was thinking the other day, you know, there's a lot of things that come out in the news that are like, boom, look at this distraction, look at this, we've got a dancing panda, and we have a disaster, we have a false flag threat, we have this going on, but what is the latest with the oil spill? What have you found?
I mean, yeah. It's a matter of a lot of stuff. I mean, 1 year after the chocolatey crude started spewing out of the bottom of the Gulf of Mexico, leading to the largest accidental oil spill in history, scientists say they're still trying to piece together what's happening to the environment. Some potential clues about the impact of the spill have made themselves known, like dead dolphins washing up, and, you know, suffering marsh grasses, and this is going to be exponential. I mean, people think that one little thing doesn't affect the rest of the world or the rest of the ecosystem, but it's all tied in together. I mean, it's going to affect it.
It's certainly all tied together. Oil spill amnesia endangers our nation's coastline. We're going to go over this report, graphic 108. Well, Bill, there you go. Today we celebrate the 41st Earth Day. We also mark 1 year since the Deepwater Horizon oil rig sank to the bottom of the Gulf of Mexico. On April 20th, 2010, the platform exploded, killing 11 workers. The rig disappeared beneath the water's surface 2 days later, but for 87 days, more than 4 million barrels of oil spewed from the blown-out well, coating nearly 1,000 miles of Gulf coastline and temporarily closing over 88,000 square miles of some of the nation's most productive fishing grounds. What is the latest with BP? They are going to get some renewed contracts from the federal government to resume drilling. And so we can thank Obama for that. We can thank many in Congress for that. You know, but here they are getting us ready for the next savior. I think most of you are familiar with the news that Trump's going to be our big daddy. Are we all? Let's get some callers that are in favor of Donald Trump, who says he wants to run the United States like a capitalist business. Yes, I'd like to hear what you think about Trump. I think it's very important that we get some dirt on this son of a bitch, other than the fact that he likes to run around saying, "You're fired. You're fired. You're fired. I want to be your president. You're fired, Obama." I mean, come on, give me a break.
Yeah, I mean, and if he wants to run America like a business, like he runs it, how many times has he bankrupted his businesses?
Hey, Trump, how about expose the 9/11 lie? Hey, Trump, why not call out the New World Order and all these millions that were murdered for a lie. Hey, Trump, why don't we talk about these banker bailouts, you know, a little bit more vocally? Or maybe you have something to benefit from perhaps these banker bailouts. I mean, Trump should be... Now, when Rush Limbaugh gets all giddy, he's got Trump on, you know, and you see these gangster pals just high-fiving, and Hannity's excited, and Glenn Beck's excited, and they're all just getting ready to party like it's 1999. Obama's gonna leave, Republicans gonna bring some heaven and joy. Yeah, bread and water, literally, in this prison planet that we're living in. Yeah, that'd be fluoridated water.
Yeah, fluoridated. Yeah, check your toothpaste.
No, don't vote for... Well, you look at the propaganda, you look at the packaging, and you look at the colors red, white, and blue. And I don't mean the American flag. I'm talking about promotional campaign posters. So you saw the whole poll. Do you want to vote for Obama? Yes or no? It was on YouTube. The little flashing banners, MySpace. You just can't seem to get away from them. Also news blogs and things like that. Yes or no? And it's got that... But look, I can lead. They have done the exact imagery to Trump. So what they've done with Bush, they have done with Obama, and it looks like they may do with Donald Trump.
Yeah, I mean... Yeah, it's a matter of just looking past that paradigm of left-right. I mean, I don't see how people can't see it by now. They've been doing it for so long. They
well,
use
because
the same
Alex, you're young and you just need to learn that everything's going to be fine. Let's party like it's 1929. Everything's going to be fine by 2030. Obama said, Bush said, they said. In 15 years, folks, everything's going to be fine. Everything's going to be fine, and then you realize there's MOD reports, DOD reports, CIA reports planning for a global war for resources, a war they'll stage, even though the corporations that are allowed to be empowered by the government, corporations, government, corporatism,
education.
fascism. You see these strange deals with the devil taking place.
Yeah. So yeah, and if you look at it, it's this iron triangle. People go from government to business to things like education. You look at the Department of, the agricultural, like even OSU. There's people who worked for Monsanto that work for OSU now in the agricultural department. I mean, come on. Give me a break.
No food shall be grown that we don't own. And then there are these other commercials for Miracle-Gro, Roundup. All these women with oversized breasts spraying poisonous Roundup, like all throughout in Miracle-Gro, their garden. And it's just like, we own the future.
Don't worry, it dissipates in 8 hours.
It's paradise and utopia over here. There's nobody getting bombed. We're all living in the soon-to-be bankrupt U.S., the soon-to-be bankrupt U.S., the soon-to-be bankrupt U.S. We're all living 6 feet down under, 6 feet down under. Party like it's 1929. Come on, take your top off. It's just party and just smear your body with oil. Anyways.
Put some Kragsic on it. It'll take it off real good.
We've talked a lot about solar flares and their effect on Earth, their effect on human behaviors. In fact, when you research solar flares, I'll have a presentation at some point in the next year that will further document this. Solar flares are tied to cycles of war. Now, this report is something interesting that I found at marketoracle.com, and this is written by a John Hampson. Rising solar activity into a solar peak actually happens to correlate with periods of inflation, and that in historical secular commodities bull markets, the relative pricing of hard assets to stocks as each time peaked at the solar peak. Commodities are sought after in inflation times, and their prices are a key ingredient in consumer price inflation levels, producing a feedback loop. But given that stocks also usually perform well in inflationary times, is there any correlation between stocks and solar cycles? Solar peaks show some correlation with peaks in stocks. In fact, buying at each solar minimum and selling at the next maximum 3 to 5 years later has returned average gains of 70%. Solar cycle 24 began around December 2008. Some analysts say that it has just recently began, so when Sunspot Cycle 24 began is a matter of opinion. But continuing on with the article, it is predicted to peak in July 2013. I've also seen other reports that note that Solar Cycle 24 could peak as far as 2014 to 2015. Looking shorter term to the solar peak around mid-2013, stocks should track yet higher, and this implies commodities much higher, as the extreme relative pricing of commodities over stocks should be reached around that solar peak before a secular